You're listening to the Crew Book Club podcast, the show that challenges you to change your mindset through hearing about dope books. Thanks for hanging with the crew to get advice, ask questions, and gain knowledge with me, your host, Sade Hill. What up, crew? What's good? It's your girl, Sade, ready for another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast. Hey, listen, y'all gonna get a video this week. I'm chilling, though. I'm in my kindness t-shirt. It's just a reminder to be kind to myself and for you to be kind to others. I want to shout out to everyone who still listens to the podcast without me having to post about it on social media or on YouTube. I appreciate it so much because that just showed me you really down for me. You know what I'm saying? So thank you so much. So I'm going to just start off with Crew Love first. Thank you for all of it. Thank you for the reviews. If you haven't left a review yet and it's your second episode, even if it's your second episode or your 90th episode, leave a review. You should have left one by now. Okay. Leave your girl a review. Share it. Tell a friend. I absolutely appreciate it. Okay. I have a surprise for you guys about the show after the 100th episode. Yeah, we're going to be switching it up a little bit. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited. It's always about leveling up. It's all about growing. You have to evolve. Every successful person, company, even people in the Bible, they evolved. And God is a moving God. You move by faith. You feel me? Walking through the valley. God is always moving God. So we always got to be moving. So I'm excited about what's to come. So stay tuned for that. And this week has been great. There has been a low in my city. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. And we had a mass shooting on Saturday and August 26th. And, you know, my prayers out to the family and everyone that was affected and involved. I have no words. But I definitely prayed for the family, the city, the country, because we all need each other. So yeah, so definitely leaving it in God's hands and being obedient to whatever he asks of me to do at this point in my life. And yeah, so I've been on this sabbatical. I haven't been on social media, and honestly, I really don't want to go back. But I know I'm lying. I don't need to go back. I do want to go back, but I don't miss it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe it's because I'm getting tired of the marketing of it all. People don't really, you don't really understand. To get on here and to do the recording, to do the editing, to do the marketing, on top of fulfill my duties as a realtor, it's a lot. And I think I remember praying on the 15th day of the challenge and God just telling me to stop. And I felt like my father knew I needed rest. And at this point, he don't have to get me sick to sit me down. I'm obedient enough to know when I need to chill, when he tell me to chill. And in those times, it has been some beautiful things that have happened. My husband was baptized. That was very beautiful to experience. I noticed that I'm not as tired. Even though I said when I'm online, I just be posting. I'm not looking at what other people do and compare myself. If anything, I'm getting motivated by what I'm seeing. And that is true. And at the same time, it's still a form of not having the mindset of contentment. Because it's like, I might be looking at you and saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do better. I could do better. Ooh, I can do this. I could do this. But if God didn't confirm it, then I'm tiring myself out trying to be like someone else's content instead of just focusing on what my content looks like. So took a break. I don't know how I'm going to roll back out there, but I know it has to be different. Because the way that I was doing it, I ain't with it unless somebody else wants to do it, or until God financially puts me in a position where I can pay somebody else to do it. That's what I'm praying for. Okay? Because I just want to be on here and share the content of these books. And that's it. And to be open with you, and for me to be a testimony to share. That's it. I don't care about being seen. I really don't. I really don't. Okay. All right. So we're gonna get into the show. You already know the first segment of the show is before we eat the food of the show. We're gonna give thanks to the Lord, to God. And who gonna check me, boo? God is. He is always checking us, and we deserve a good check. You hear me? And this check comes from Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. It said, let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. I used to tell people, people better be happy I know Jesus, because if I really wanted to say what came out of my mouth, it would be straight up flesh. So I constantly have to subject my flesh and also have a conversation full of grace with others, because what I'm learning is the things that I've gone through in life, or what I was taught and conditioned to be as children or society, I had to, am still unlearning. There's a lot of unlearning. I was listening to a pastor that was on a call, and he said a lot of the things that we say are generational curses are actually just bad behavior that we learned. That wasn't his words, I'm summarizing. But in my mind, I felt the word that came to me was generational habits, not curses, just habits and things that we're taught and conditioned as children. And from our society that we have to unlearn. Because when I used to get into it with people, I'm like, oh, you're just a mean person, or you're just this person. Because I'm the person, I don't get into it with people unless they get into it with me. Right? But then the older I'm getting and the more I'm connecting with God, is just like, have a conversation full of grace. It's because they have trauma too. Right? So I have to, the same grace that God gives me, I definitely have to give it to other people, because I don't even know their story, because they don't even know half of mine. And so I just want to make sure when I'm having conversation with people, sometimes people will make you side eye and be like, that's how you think? That's how you are as a person? But then it's also like, we don't know what trauma happened to them, or what they were taught that caused them to be that way. And maybe this is something I'm about to say that's unpopular, but it's like people that are racist. Listen, that is a learned behavior that our society has ingrained in a lot of, or grandparents, that is learned behavior. Okay? And the same way in quote unquote black communities, whatever, how those gangs become family, we don't know what that person had to become family to feel family, because they didn't have a family, and then they learned those behaviors, and they started projecting it, and they've been conditioned to that. So just giving people more grace, and when looking at people and being like, they might not know God, or be, you know what I'm saying? But they're still God's children. Just because he or she is an atheist, or say they don't believe in God, they are still God's children. And I have to see them as such, and let God handle them in a way, and him giving me grace to handle them in a way. So we can be able to answer everyone. Okay, that was what checked me this week. Colossians chapter 4, verse 6. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how to answer everyone. Okay, so we're going to get into our new book. The new book is, and side note, I am using Kindle on my phone, because I was at an event the other day, and the book got placed in someone else's bag, and they're returning it to me on Wednesday. But the title, you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. It's our new book by John C. Maxwell, 15th Invaluable Laws of Growth. I actually started this book at another community for their accountability, and I started reading it, and I was like, oh, we need to do this on the pod. So here we are. We are on episode 90, guys, and we are jumping into the Invaluable Laws of Growth by John C. Maxwell, and I have a surprise for you coming up on the 100th episode, 10 more episodes. The crew is switching it up. I can't wait to see how that goes. Okay, I'm going to just mute there because it's already on the calendar. We just need to make sure we execute. And so I can't wait to see the switch up. I hope you guys love it just as much as I'm loving planning it. Okay. Now, the first chapter of the 15th Invaluable Laws of Growth, chapter 1, is the Law of Intentionality. It's all about intention. But the thing is, before we even get into that, in the beginning of the chapter, it says, growth doesn't just happen. Life is now and in session. Are you present? Are you present in your life, or are you just getting by? Are you living life, or are you letting life live you? Okay. So I like how the chapter starts off great, but I want to get into what he calls growth gap traps. We be in a trap. And a lot of y'all might know what a trap house is, where it's like where drugs and people who get high and strung out are at a trap house. That's because it's a trap. Either you're gonna die or you're gonna go to jail. It ain't no in between. And a lot of times we get stuck in the in between of growth. And so let's get out those traps. And the traps that he discussed in chapter 1 are on pages 3 through 6. And I'm gonna give you all 8. Are you ready? Listen closely. The assumption gap. The assumption gap is like, I assume that I will automatically grow. No, it don't just happen. Yeah, our bodies grow. We have no control of that, right? But we have control in how our mind grows. And we have to set our minds up to be able to grow. I like the quote that was put in the section by Bruce Springsteen. He says, a time comes where you need to stop waiting for the man you want to become and start becoming the man you want to be. Okay? That is so important. I've mentioned before, there's circles that I wanted to be in, but I can't be in those circles unless I'm becoming and putting into place like the people in those circles. Them people is already where I'm trying to be. And you just don't get access to everybody. So you have to be in position. And to be in position, I have to change my mindset to become the person that I want to become. So I can be able to grow, to be able to be in those circles. Okay? The second gap, the knowledge gap. I don't know how to grow. Y'all, there's too much technology out here to not know how to grow. There's too many books, too many stories to not know how to grow. Okay. Sorry, y'all. I had to take a minute because I'm using the Kindle and it's a little bit more different than having my book in front of me. Okay. Kindness and grace to myself. I'm asking of you as well to give me a little kindness and some grace today. All right. So the knowledge gap. So when he was discussing the knowledge gap, he had a person that Kurt Kamir, I hope I'm saying that right. And he had asked him, he said, do you have a growth plan? A lot of times we want to grow, but we don't know where to start or we don't know how to grow, right? So he brought this $799 program that Kurt had offered. But the funny part was, well, not the funny part, the beautiful part was they didn't have the money to buy it. And so he sacrificed to learn how to grow. Are you willing to sacrifice to learn how to grow? him and his wife even worked extra to help him to be able to get it because she understood what will help him will help her. Okay? So what are you willing to sacrifice to put yourself in the position to buy the things to help you grow? And if you're like, well, I don't want to buy anything. Okay, well, that tells me you're not invested in yourself. Or even if you start looking online and searching for those things that are free until you're able to buy the things to be able to get you to grow, you have to start somewhere. Okay? Get your knowledge. You cannot avoid it if you want to grow. Okay? So the other gap is the timing gap. It's not the right time to begin. Then when is the right time? It's like we always want to do things, but you do the things that you want to do. You make time for those things. So let's make time to grow. You want to grow? Because if you ain't making time to grow, then that tells me that you want to stay stagnant. Okay? Keep it real with yourself. That timing gap, though, it's not the right time to begin. He says, the law of diminishing intent says, the longer you wait to do something you should do now, the greater the odds you will never actually do it. I had this thing where I was just like, when I say I'm going to do the dishes, I'm going to do the dishes. When I say I'm going to mop the floor, I'm going to mop the floor. I went through a whole period of that because I wanted to teach myself to do it when I say I'm going to do it or when it crosses my mind and I actually have the time to do it in that moment. And I also have this thing, it's like if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. The fourth gap is the mistake gap. I'm afraid of making mistakes. You guys, there's no way of getting around making mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you're too comfortable. You become stagnant at a time if you're always doing it perfectly. It has here in the book on page 6. If you want to grow, you need to get over any fear you may have making mistakes. Okay? Warren Bennis asserts, a mistake is simply another way of doing things. To become intentionally about growing, expect to make mistakes every day and welcome them as signs that you are moving in the right direction. That is so good. The fifth gap, the perfection gap. I have to find the best way before I start. Similar to the mistake gap is the perfection gap, the desire to find the best way to get started in the growth plan. He says, I went looking for the best way, but what I discovered is that I had it backward. I had to get started if I wanted to find the best way. That is so true. The inspiration gap. I don't feel like doing it. Y'all, we done touched on this so much. Just do it, because motivation is not going to always be there. Okay. The next gap was the comparison gap. Oh, that was good. Others are better than I am. Oh my goodness. I always use this example. Imagine if Rihanna was like, there's other makeup better than mine, so I'm not going to support Fenty. And look at Fenty. Somebody is waiting on you, sis. Stop comparing yourself and be intentional about your growth and no one else's. Okay? Just do it. You know, a psychologist, Jerome Berner, it talks about on page 7, says, you're more likely to act yourself into feeling than feel yourself into action. So act. Okay? So listen now, you're more likely to act yourself into feeling than feel yourself into action. So it's more so just start doing it and then the motivation will come. I always use the 10-minute rule for an example. If you start something and do it for at least 10 minutes, when that 10-minute timer goes off, you're either going to want to keep going because the 10 minutes went by too fast, and if you want to stop, just stop and do another 10 minutes the next day. Okay? You're taking your 10,000 hours of mastery in bite-sized pieces, but that's better than doing nothing at all. The last gap he talked about in chapter 1 was the expectation gap. I thought it would be easier than this. Y'all, I thought this would be easier than what I thought, potting. I didn't think it was going to be easy, but the other stuff, it's the other stuff for me. People don't say this a lot, but it's like you get into business to make cakes or to throw a party, but they don't, or to do a pod, but they don't tell you the marketing behind it, the people that you might have to deal with in customer service, or the fact that you have to be the IT, the fact that you have to be the customer service, the fact that you have to be the bookkeeper, the facts that you have to be everything. Okay? Now, you could just do the minimum, but will your business even grow? And is that of order? God is a God of order. So there's an order to things that needs to be done. But I do believe if you move forward and find a way to be more effective and efficient for yourself, it will work out. So you can fall out of the comparison gap. You can fall out of the perfection gap. You can fall out the mistaken timing gap. Okay? And you could just do what you can do little bit by little bit. Okay? So those were the 8 gaps in chapter 1 that I wanted to touch base on. There's a lot of amazing things in chapter 1, but those were the things that I felt like we needed to know what keeps us trapped from growing, so then that way we can grow. All right, now we're going to get into chapter 2, the law of awareness. And if you dive over to page 17, it says, do you have a sense of direction? Are you even aware of the direction that you're going? In the chapter, it discussed 3 kinds of people when it comes to having direction in life. It's 1, people who don't know what they would like to do. And then 2, people who know what they would like to do but don't do it. And people 3 who know what they would like to do and do it. I was the person who knew what I would like to do, but I didn't do it. And I would be stuck. Ready to get out the job, but not doing the things to get out the job. Ready to make a difference in my business, but not doing the things to make a difference in my business. And it's like, which person are you? I'm becoming the person that knows what they want to do, and I am doing it. Because there's still perspectives of my business that I was like, dang, I want to do it, but I don't want to do it. Okay. Heck, the social media marketing. I don't want to do that. So, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to get done. I just have to find a way to either leverage it or manage my time better where it's getting done without me having to do it every day. You know what I'm saying? Now, it says on page 18, for people who don't know what they would like to do, you confused. I was there too. I was confused. I think, and it says they dabble and they drift. And I was a dabbler and I was a drifter. What I would do was I would get into something and be really great at it. And then I would disappear from it. Or I would disappear from it. Okay. And I had to realize I can't do that. I needed to stay in something long enough to see it come to pass. But I also needed to make sure I had permission from God on what I was doing. So then he can give me the power to do it. My husband and I had tapped into a conversation today. And we were like scratching the surface of what God has access to do. But there's people like the LeBron James of the game, the Jordans, you got the Michael Jacksons of the game besides his transgressions, or what we think were his transgressions. You have the Drakes and the Jay-Z's who've tapped into that core. You know what I'm saying? That a lot of us cannot get to. All right. It's a very rare thing. It takes a different level of discipline. You know it's in you because we all got it. But what are we doing to tap into that, to get to the core, to get to the main fire that keeps it burning? Okay. So dig deep, find out what your direction is and lock in so we can get to that core. Okay. I like how he mentioned on page 25, it says through 27 about creating a game plan, because this is how we're going to be able to grow. We're going to have a plan to follow, right? So there's awareness, action, accountability, and attraction. You can literally look up the definition of those words and know what that means, right? So we have to become aware, to put in the action, to be accountable to that, and then we're going to attract what we've been putting out. It don't come, oh, I'm going to attract and then I'll become. No, baby, you got to become and then you will attract. You feel what I'm saying? So that is the vibe of the book. That's a little dibbling, dabbling. It was a little difficult doing it on the Kindle. Hopefully by next week. Well, by next week, I will have my hand copy. I just knew I did not want to pass up on tapping into this. And I also felt like nothing can stop me. Like, I want to make sure I made the commitment to put out 100 episodes straight. You feel what I'm saying? And so I want to be able to do that. Okay. Before we get into the challenge of the week, I want to extend you the opportunity to get your life together. Okay. We are partnered with BetterHelp for this episode. And let me tell y'all, BetterHelp is affordable, it's convenient, and it gives you the opportunity to choose different therapists, and you can change your therapist without charge if you felt like the therapist you were meeting with isn't working out. I always say give a therapist at least 3 times, but I'm going to tell you my recent testimony of my story was I met with a therapist and I felt like we wasn't vibing, and I scheduled another time to meet with her, and I did not go on the call. And even though it was just like it wasn't that it was this awkwardness. It was just like, I just felt like what I went into therapy about recently wasn't a therapy thing. I used it as an emergency, needing an answer and somebody to talk to. And that is not how therapy works. So, and I'm just always here to keep it funky with you. And so I highly suggest, and I'm talking to myself too, that we make sure before we just jump into it, research the therapist, make sure you're not wasting your time, invest. Don't use it as a hotline just to talk to someone, because then it really won't be effective. Like, really read, ask questions. Your first thing, I feel like I don't want to just jump into my problem. So I want to try therapy differently, because a lot of times you answer the questionnaire on BetterHelp and then they pair you up, but then you just take who they pair you with before you even accept the pair research. And I think you can ask questions before you get into it. But yeah, do your due diligence before picking your therapist. That way you're using your time wisely. And that's one thing I love about BetterHelp. They allow that. Okay? This is for exclusive The Crew Book Club podcast listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/crewlove. That's betterhelp.com/crewlove. The link will be in the show notes. Now, before I let you go, I want to give you a challenge of the week. The challenge of the week comes from Paige, and actually I cannot find it on my Kindle copy. I don't know what page it is on Kindle, but I can say the challenge was do it now. It was basically where you would wake up and say it 50 times in a row. Do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now in the morning. And then you would go to sleep. The last thing you would say is do it now, do it now, do it now. It's like training your mind to do it now. And I like the quote that it had. It said, the greatest danger you face in this moment is the idea that you will make intentional growth later. You guys, let's not wait and do it now so we can grow. Because what we do now affects where we're at 5 years from now. Do you want your 5 years to look like where you're at now? Are your actions, are your daily actions going to put you in the position to where you need to be or where you want to be? That's an indicator of what you need to change. Okay? Now, I'm going to leave you with that. Okay? on that challenge of the week. So every morning, let's just do it for a week and see how it goes. I am going to do it. And it's like, do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. Put it in your calendar. But let's end this episode with the quote of the week. The quote of the week is from page 2 of our new book, The 15th Invaluable Laws of Growth by John C. Maxwell. If you focus on goals, you may hit goals, but that doesn't guarantee growth. If you focus on growth, you will grow and always hit the goals. Okay, crew, let's go out into this world, take it over for ourselves, focus on our growth so we can hit our goals. Thanks for hanging with the Crew Book Club podcast. I will holler at y'all later. Else, want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I would appreciate you showing crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, welcome to the crew.